So Leanna, I have another question for you, and I require your advice here. As you know, in the Toronto market, the condos are on fire. They are very hot. They're quite affordable. However, along with the purchase of a condo comes a status certificate. Now, oftentimes buyers will ask me, why do I need a status certificate? What is it for? What is my lawyer looking for? Perhaps you can shed some light on what exactly is a status certificate.
So a status certificate is a 3 to 4 page document usually that the condominium corporation provides. What it does is it outlines the non-financial and financial aspects of the position of the condominium corporation. So it's exactly that. A status certificate review is reviewing that document and the additional documents that usually come along with that. So being the declaration, the bylaws, any rules or regulations that that particular condominium corporation would have in place. So it's definitely a great idea to have a condition in an agreement of purchase and sale that it is definitely conditional upon the status certificate review.
Okay, and just to add to that, what would be maybe a couple of the big red flags that you'd be looking for when reviewing a status certificate?
Sure. So the first and foremost, what we usually look at is to make sure that the actual unit number that you are purchasing or in your agreement of purchase and sale matches the status certificate. So your purchaser is in fact purchasing what they think they are purchasing. So first and foremost, that's what we look at to make sure whether or not they're getting a parking space or a locker, things of that nature. Then we usually look at common expenses, whether or not those match and the purchaser knows what they're getting themselves into, whether or not any special assessments have been levied against the condominium corporation. We also look at things such as the existing reserve fund and whether or not we believe it to be adequate for the age of the project.
So once someone orders, either being the buyer or the seller, and they order the status certificate, how long are these documents valid for?
Well, that's a great question. Usually we always, again, suggest that our client gets the most up-to-date status certificate. And the reason being is things can change very rapidly with a condominium corporation between today, tomorrow, and perhaps next week. So we always first and foremost recommend that it is an up-to-date status certificate. But having said that, we know that that is not always possible. So usually if the status certificate is dated 30 days prior to closing, that is usually sufficient. So we usually accept that that status certificate. If it's dated anywhere between 31 days, let's say, and 60 days, typically we need a status certificate verification. So we will contact the condominium corporation and verify that nothing has changed between the time frame. If it's between 60 days to just before 90 days, again, we usually want some sort of written verification that nothing has changed. If we cannot get that, we will require a new status certificate to be purchased. But in any event, if this status certificate is dated 90 days or more prior to closing, then we will of course recommend and need a new status certificate.
All right, guys, that concludes another episode of the Real Estate Rundown. If you have any questions about the legalities and the real estate transaction, please feel free to contact Longo Law. They'll be happy to help. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Real Estate Rundown.